I want to welcome you to the webinar here today. My name is Michael. I am the co-founder and president of BackToTheFutureTrading.com. And we're excited to announce the release of our new website. If you haven't visited it, yes, please visit us at BackToTheFutureTrading.com, where we have all sorts of resources available for you to learn more about our products, our customers' experiences, and ways that you can get started with us. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about our flagship product, TachEon Warp, and its companion product, TachEon Kronos, for TradingView. And so TachEon Warp is a really interesting program that's been in development now for the better part of 15 plus years, over 12,000 lines of code. And today we want to talk a little bit about what it is that that code is designed to do. Our belief, what we believe, that makes us different from gurus, marketers, influencers, the general snake oil population, if you will, is there has to be a reason that 90% of people are losing 90% of their accounts 90 days into their journeys over and over and over again, consistently, decade after decade. And our belief is that large banks, institutions, trading firms have a sort of financial legal immunity and manipulate markets. In fact, there's ample evidence to prove that they're getting caught year after year after year after year. And best we can tell, they're paying $1 in fines for every $3 that they make. And so it's a great gig if you can get it. It, however, poses a unique problem for traders who are in the crypto, forex, futures, and equity space, because if people can do whatever they want and get away with it, if they can manipulate the markets and make indicators that people have used for years look like they're doing something that they're not, then what hope do we have? How far can our commercial trading computer get us, our gigabit internet speeds and whatever intuition or intelligence we come to the party just isn't enough, because billions and trillions of dollars worth of leverage win every time. So what Warp does that's different from other programs, and by extension Kronos, is it looks back into the historical data of the market that you trade. In this case, E-mini, or rather gold futures. And those 12,000 lines of code, buoyed by the belief that banks and institutions and time cycles are important, looks for times that they may be doing these things, right? So it's one thing to say you're not manipulating the markets, or you're not doing these things, or it's one thing to believe markets are random. But if we send the code backwards into the history and we look for times historically where prices are consistently rising or falling, then we shouldn't get any kind of meaningful answers. And in the case of gold futures on a daily time frame, we basically have a chart with two halves. And this is what separates Warp from any other product you'll ever see, and puts us in a class of essentially fraud immunity. Immunity from fraud, because every signal that we talk about and everything that we give you was provided in advance of the offering of sale. So there's literally nowhere to put the card up our sleeve or in our pants. It's a bare naked demonstration of the method. So every Warp chart that people are using, every Kronos chart that people are using, has 3 sections to it. And that's one of the innovative features and functions of the tool. We have what's expected to occur in the future. That is to say, up on the 5th, down on the 21st, up on the 14th, down on the 28th, up on the 15th. And then we have a historical record of accuracy. So the up move on 9/13 was a former prediction. The down move on October 3rd was a former prediction. All of these times were moments on the daily bar chart where there were no bars. And when we arrived at the date that we'd been expecting, the move either happened or it didn't. And so one of the great things about these charts is that when asked the question, why should I believe you? There's really no room for the word belief. We're looking at math. We're looking at statistical edges and probabilities. And so if the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves in gold appear at or near the bottom of the move, then we should pay close attention to what's happening on March 5th, April 14th, and May 15th. Back to the future. It's bidirectional. The method involves searching for recurring historical patterns, identifying them, and then projecting them in the future where we have an opportunity to react ahead of time. And so when we're using Warp and we're trying to understand if this is real or not, you having come here for maybe the first or second time, there's only one way to demonstrate this to you, and that is by providing the times in advance before the webinar in some of the most popularly traded and analyzed and talked about markets in the world. And 2 days later on a webinar at 4 o'clock when the New York market closes, right? When the ding-a-ling stands there and he goes, we kind of have to put our money where our mouth is. So if what we believe is true, then it would be a relatively easy endeavor to provide you with the signals that the market is likely to go up or down in the future. And so we can look here 2 days ago and see what was estimated to happen in gold futures. And you can see that there's a historical record of the publishing of that photo in the public record. So 2 days ago, the program provided this for Thursday via the 12,000 lines of code of that indicator, undergirded by the belief that if they did it as often as they had at that point, there was a good chance today that those moves might occur again. And so in the great experiment here, in an effort to show you that this is real, every one of the markets that we've provided those signals for now has a historical record of accuracy. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you look at this chart and we zoom it in here, you'll see 135, 305, and 540. Can you guys see that? I'll blow it up a little bit more. Michael Scott reference. And 135, 305, 540, 850, 1110, 1215. So the program had essentially been directed by us a few days ago on your behalf to go in search of recurring historical patterns. Banks don't want you to think this way. How many of you have a behavior pattern that you repeat, or maybe you have a brother-in-law that does the same thing over and over again? He's been married to the same type of woman 3 or 4 times in a row, same hair type, same personality type, and you pull them over and say, hey, bro, you know, we're not close friends, but from 100 miles away, an idiot can see that you keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. I have a brother-in-law like this. And you look at it and say, dude, when are you going to learn this thing? You keep doing it over and over again. So the program here is sort of acting on our behalf, and it's looking for times where moves are consistently happening to the downside and moves are consistently happening to the upside. And if there's an answer, if there's no answer, there's no report. But if there's an answer, then on this chart, we get a hit, selling at 135, buying at 305, selling at 540, and so on. So the only reason these numbers and these colored lines exist is because, in fact, there was a recurring pattern, maybe one that would repeat in the future. Does that make sense? Let me know if you're tracking here. Anybody here confused or lost? Because here's where it gets really interesting to me. Remember the signals that we had, and I'm going to correspond them to what was provided to about 18,000 people in the challenge, in the experiment, who had access to those signals. The first one was 1:35 Eastern time. And can you guys see on my chart here where it says 1:35 and 1:35? The estimation, according to the program, TachEon Warp, was that we would see selling pressure from 1:35 until the next signal at 3:05. And so I'm going to put 3:05 here. We would then see buying pressure from 3:05 to 5:40. The next signal on my live chart 2 days later was 5:40. So I'm going to connect those 2 dots now, 3 dots now on my chart. The next signal was from 5:40 Eastern until 8:50 Eastern New York time. And so I'm going to circle the 8:50 dot, and I'm going to connect that to the circle that I drew around the 5:40 dot. Then 2 days ago, the programming having gone back into the historical record, armed with 12,000 soldiers, little binary bits and bytes, looking for the times that JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank don't want you to know about, whispered forward into time on our behalf and said, watch for a move up from 8:50 until 11:10 Eastern New York time. And so on my chart, you can see when there were no bars on this chart and we were sitting at the 8:50 bar and a white dot formed, the next signal waiting for us was at 11:10 a.m. Eastern time. And so I'm going to connect those 2 dots with the same type of yellow line that I'm drawing by hand. And then from 11:10 until lunchtime, 12:15 US time, you can see 11:10 and then again 12:15, 12:15, and I'm going to connect those 2 dots. 12:15 into 1:15, 12:15 into 1:15. I'm going to connect those dots. 1:15 into 1:35, 1:15 into 1:35, forgive me, 1:35, and then 1:35 into 1:50, 1:35 into 1:50. Now, I'm no genius. In fact, there are moments in my increasingly elderly life as I approach mid-50s, headed to 60s. And those of you older than me realize when I say it goes like that. It's getting harder and harder for me every year to have the types of thoughts I had in my 40s and 30s that were sort of laser focused and rapid and developmental and eureka filled. But now in my mid 50s, approaching 60, It's harder for me to have long duration thought sessions to explore and research things before that dull ache appears. That notwithstanding, I don't know which way the chart is on your screen. Let's assume it's this way. Look at what happened 2 days after. Was the belief that time was an important factor, that these moves could potentially recur again, and irrespective of all of the available reports today, unemployment and CPI yesterday, and Jerome Powell and President Trump this and Elon Musk that, 2 days later really didn't matter. Down at 135, up at 305, down at 540, up at 850, down at 1110, up at 1215. So the genius isn't the execution. The genius isn't the indicator itself. The genius, I think, for all of us today is to have the courage to believe, to act on our suspicion that time is more important than price and price action and volume and gurus and influencers and these marketing machines and snake oil clowns that post their clickbait with their crazy new flavor of the day. ICT, LMNOP, ABC, RESPECT. It's a new thing all the time. And in reality, time cycles matter more and catch these institutions in the act. Okay, so now let's kind of circle out and look at some higher time frame stuff together. Now that you know how the software works and operates, we're going to come back to some of these forecasts here today. I'm not afraid of them. We can look at any one of them. You can pick them at random, and I'm going to do the same thing that we just did with gold today. But I wanted to go back, now that you understand how the software works, and show you that the right-hand side of my chart for gold goes out to June and July. June and July. So February, March, April, May, June, July, that's 6 months into the future. One thing of important note, the times do not, ready, disappear. They never move or change or update. They are essentially immortal in their location. So that means if the signals were 6 months into the future over here, how long were we waiting for the January 20th move? How far back this way did we have a notice about the potential move on January 20th? That's right, 6 months on the daily time frame. Holy frijoles, Batman. Let's take a look at some of the markets that most people perceive as random, right? Let's come back over to here. A lot of talk in the information verse online, all the news outlets now crazy with the crazy in chief, the buddy in chief, Mr. Musk there, Doge, playfully bringing his weird crypto fetishes into the political verse. We're looking at Bitcoin. Fun fact, if you're a big Tesla follower, the only place they made money last quarter was on their Bitcoin investment. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we look at the Tesla chart. But here we can sort of see, now that you understand how the program works, we'll pull it off to the left. And I have the dates for the following months: February, March, April. Let's keep going. May, June, July, August, September. Wow. So how long were we waiting for these signals? Quite a while, right? So let's take a quick look at a theoretical exercise and bear this in mind. This is all hypothetical, right? There's no live account to reference. But when we're looking at things through a predictive timing lens, The burden of proof is suddenly off my shoulders if I've given people the dates in advance. All the dates on this chart have been referenced in the webinars for the past 6 months. It's in the public record. Everything you're seeing right now, people were alerted to the fact 6 months or further backwards. So in terms of credibility and transparency, fraudulence, all those things are sort of pushed to the side if you're able to say in the future, this is what we're expecting, and then come back afterwards and analyze it. So important to bear in mind, though, that this is, again, a non-official performance review. But what I want to do with you is just walk you through this exercise. Let's assume the information was right. Right? Let's assume the information was right. Let's say we could buy on the close and sell on the opposite close. That's a $2,100 move at a time that Bitcoin was $60,000. We could have bought on the 1st of October and exited on the close of the 24th of October for a $7,400 move. We could have bought on the close of October 4th and exited on the close of October 12th for a $20,000 move, or a 25% increase in value. Okay, you see where I'm going with this? We could have bought on the close of the 15th and exited on the 29th, bought on the close of the 11th, and here finished at a loss, negative $3,900. Bought on the close of the 31st, exited on the 7th for a $3,300 gain. And now right here, we are underwater $4,600. Any questions about that? Now imagine if all of the signals were reversed or randomized somehow and meaningless. We could have bought here and sold there, bought here and sold there. Everything could be jumbled up, but it's not. Your brain is already starting to key in on the fact that, wow, about half of the signals are at the actual tops and bottoms of these moves. And that's kind of bananas. But there's historical precedent for it. We can talk about that if you want. What I wanted to say about Bitcoin while we're here is the following. When the market opened, and the signal was on the 2nd of February, does everyone notice that we haven't really made much progress? The opening price, or the closing price rather, was around 97,848, 850. The exact amount is 600. Let me just make sure I have that date right. 676. Okay, but if we look at that line, and I'll take this and kind of extend it and stretch it out, Michael Scott, we've been slowly degrading. And this is a setup that I like to point out, and it's something I'm teaching relatively newly in the webinars. I call this a rotting banana. And my wife likes to buy fresh fruit. She sees a lot of programs on TV. She's got a bunch of people on Instagram she follows, and they're all about healthier lifestyles and organizing your refrigerator. And so we're never without fruit or bananas in the refrigerator, and I love her for that. But sometimes she forgets that all our kids are gone and it's just the two of us. And so what was once a ripe, bright yellow Ecuadorian banana with promise, filled with nutrients and hope, starts to get blacker and blacker and blacker and blacker, and fruit flies start to put little stakes in the ground and claim it as theirs for the nation of black flies and fruit flies. And so I equate that to the kind of signal that you guys are seeing here. It's not really moving up. And so what that sort of tells me is that there's an institutional vacuum right here, meaning we're kind of standing in a hallway shouting out, hey guys, 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 where are all the buyers? Buyers, 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 buyers. You're supposed to buy now, 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 now. Oh, oh, okay. And I want to place emphasis on the 17th now, because when you see everybody not doing what they were expected to do, it's like a boxer. If you saw the Mike Tyson fight and you logged into Netflix and logged out and back in and logged out and back in like I did 100 times, there were 100 moments where Mike's right arm was cocked back and you knew that the uppercut that would end Jake Paul's life was on its way. You saw it. And he did what? He took his other glove and he went, "Arr," and he was biting it. Every time he had a chance to end this young man, he would go, "Arr, arr," and he would walk backwards. And one of the men on TV said, well, that's what he does when he's really frustrated. He bites his glove. And so he would get in a perfect position and then go, "Arr," and the arm would never leave. And he was pulling his punches. And so that's what's happening here. When you're focused on the timing and saying, wow, we should be going up. Oh, no one's buying now. I'm going to be paying very close attention on the 17th. Obviously, the trend is up, but no one's buying Bitcoin now. Let's take a look at what happened in Tesla, and I'll show you the same thing occurs right here, the rotting banana. And when you learn the rotten banana trade, it really gives you some insight into what I'm talking about. So we're supposed to go up. Let's say we're buying a few shares of Tesla around 420, ha, ha, ha. And then it comes all the way down, and then it comes all the way back up. And we're like, whoa, we're not doing really well here. Oh, people are not impressed. Institutions are pulling away. And I warned all of you weeks ago. I said, hey, watch for it to go down on February 10th. Bazinga. And we did. And so that rotten banana setup, it can appear all sorts of places, right? It can appear all sorts of places. It can happen in reverse, like it did in silver futures here on Christmas 12/27. If you'll notice right here, that was the closing price of silver futures, the last signal here. There was a huge move down from $33 until $30 here, 10% move. And then the software said, hey, now's where they drive it lower. And now watch, let's say you took a short position. It comes back to your position once. It comes back to your position twice. It comes back to your position a third time. So you had a month and it's exactly where it started and showing all of this upward momentum. This is an upside down black banana. And what it's pointing to for me is right here. And I warned you guys about this last week. The 12/7 signal. Look at where we are in relation to the close of that price. It's starting to curl up and move up. Well, until when? The 24th. So large time frame trades are very possible and workable, whether you're looking at gold or SPY. Same thing. Last signal on SPY. Let's get rid of the drawing tools on here from last week. We warned you guys about a move down on the 30th and then a retracement on the 13th. Remember, about half of the moves occur near the absolute high or low of the predictions. And so right here, look, rotting banana. It's not really going down, is it? Let's put it on the close of that. What does that tell you about the 18th? What does that tell you about the 18th if you're an options trader looking at SPY? Any questions about this? We're not invoking any kind of black magic, right? We're not invoking any kind of guru discretion. I used to play around when I was first learning about trading, and I paid a guy several $100s a month. And one of the things that, forgive me here for just 1 second, one of the things that I would pay for, the guy got up at 4 in the morning, and I would sit there and watch him look through the Wall Street Journal in his cutoff t-shirt with a desk in his office. Didn't say anything, didn't greet anybody in the chat room. We paid for the privilege to just watch him. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just looking at the paper. Never talked about his setups or what the entry criteria were. You look for hope. Is anybody able to beat the market in a way that they can explain to me that I can copy and in turn beat the market? And most of the time, the answer to that question is no. But when you're looking at this chart, in the fullness of all of the signals that we've had access to so far, and there's more, you start to see that, oh, this isn't Candyland. This isn't Chutes and Ladders. This is Monopoly. And there's a guy with a monocle. And the biggest player that you can't see is the bank. The bank and the money is larger than any of the pieces on the board. And if I'm going to win this game, I have to buy properties that are distressed, build hotels in Gaza, kick everybody out and make them pay a lot of money if they land on my space. It's ruthless and brutal and incredibly capitalistic. But I have to trade when the big guys trade. I have to buy NVIDIA when Nancy Pelosi buys NVIDIA. I have to buy Viasat when the senator on the Intelligence Committee knows that the Army is going to purchase a contract and use Viasat in their communications. This is how the world works. It's not Pollyanna rose-colored glasses. So of course I'd want you to pay attention to the 18th. Any questions about this so far? Okay. It's sort of like knowing what cards are about to come up next in the deck in a blackjack game. Am I going to get kings and queens and jacks and aces? Or is the market full of ones and, or rather twos and threes and jokers? Okay. Now, this next exercise I think is pretty cool. And I've done this a few times, but I want to really emphasize it here. Remember, these forecasts were made available to us 2 days ago. And they're not so much forecasts as they are behavior patterns that repeat that we're aware of in advance. Behavior patterns that we're repeating, that we're being made aware of in advance. And so right here, these are the signals for the E-mini NASDAQ. Some of you refer to this as the Nas crack because it's wild and unpredictable. It is the destroyer of souls. I make the joke that the E-mini S&P is the brunette that you take home to mom, who cooks a casserole, and if needed to, could probably change her own flat tire. The NASDAQ futures are the blonde girl that you buy a drink for and wake up in Tijuana in a tuxedo with no underwear and no recollection of what happened the night before. It's labeled as a completely unpredictable, volatile market, and rightly so. But here are all the times that were published. And what I want you to see is the further we get from the two lists that were published 2 days ago, the harder this should get to predict. So here's time and here's difficulty. And so the farther we get from the original forecast, the harder it should get to estimate when these moves on a 1-minute chart should appear. Would you agree with that, John? Would you agree with that, Isaac? Graham, does that logic hold water? I think it does. The farther away from the proposal, the harder it should be. And so here we are this afternoon. And I would wager that this chart doesn't look any different than the chart we were just looking at on the daily time frame for SPY. And again, the signals are waiting on the right-hand side through tonight into Asia's morning session, into the London session, and into the US morning session tomorrow. They're all here. 717, 751, 825, 840, 855, 917, 934, and so on. They're here. The times won't change, disappear, reappear, go away, come back, make a sandwich. And so the further we get from the original source, this is kind of what blows my mind. What's happening at the moment, we were told to expect buying and selling. In my head, I'm screaming, look at it. In my head, I'm begging you to compare what's on the screen, and I won't belabor the point, right? I won't belabor the point. I'll just shoot it over here so we can compare. See where it says 421? Here. Just so you know, I'm not jerking your gherkin here. 421, 403, 346. 421, 403, 346. And then on the high side, 357, 408, 324. 324, 357, 408. And so now there's this sort of crisis. Michael, I buy and it goes down. I sell and it goes what? Up. Holy hell. This isn't what I thought it was. But the guru told me to do this. I used the RESPECT system and it didn't work. I was watching volume profile, market delta, TPO charts, and it still feels like a crapshoot to me. Because the man with the monocle don't care. There's a great video. And I always interpret the world through multimedia. Those of you that know me, you know that that's how I perceive the world. How many of you have seen this honey badger video on YouTube? I'm going to put the link in here. And I would really encourage you to watch it. There's some foul language in it. If that you're sensitive to that, please don't. But if you don't mind, and you remember, this is what the banks think of your perception. This is what the banks think about the tools that you're watching and the guru that you're following and the course that you just paid way too much money for. Honey badger don't care. And the markets don't care. What we do care about, though, is whether or not this provides a statistical edge. Does it provide a statistical edge? And so when you come back to that page, we didn't just give you times and directions. We gave you direction in terms of how to encapsulate the signals. Most of the customers now, and I want you to bear in mind, that we've been doing this for a really long time. We have an excellent rating with Trustpilot. Anyone who can leave a review is welcome to leave a review. And so over a course of time, those people, we get to go back and ask them, how are you using this tool, right? How are you using this tool? And so about 2/3 of the people that are using this tool in a pie graph, when you ask them, how are you using it? They'll always say the same thing. I follow the trend. And that is to say, if the trend is up, I watch for the buy signals. If the trend is down, I watch for the sell signals and go short. And when people do that, generally speaking, their profitability, anecdotally speaking, is somewhere between 45 and 50%. And their profit factor is somewhere between 1.5 and 2.0, meaning for every dollar that they lose, they make two, about half the time. And so when we come back to our example, the directions that we left for you on the form with the times, we're basically encouraging you to buy at 203, to buy at 216 and 233, to buy at 304 and 346. We're going to hold that trade until 214, until 219, until 259. We're going to hold that trade until 324 and until 346. And again, if you think these are just random times, I want you to know what would happen if you bought at 324. What would happen if you bought at 259? What would happen if you bought at 219? It moves in the opposite direction. And so our stop is then 1.5 ATR values from the lows of these candles. It's the average size of a 1-minute candle now, plus 50% more. And that's what our stop is. And so for the purpose of defining whether or not this has a statistical edge or not, we simply come back at the signals that were furthest from the forecast using a loosely guided, a loosely coded trading system. Get in and get out, get in and get out, get in and get out, get in and get out. That's a trend trading strategy. And as we go backwards in time, clearing off all of the debris I left here on the chart, we can get a sense that it wasn't just this afternoon, was it? If we look at where the program, the 12,000 little ones and zeros and bits and bytes and lines of code told us to look for moves on what is admittedly one of the weirdest, wildest, craziest, most volatile, unpredictable markets in the world. About half of the time, you were getting into a move that immediately went into your direction, excluding 132, of course, excluding 144, but not 142, and then 156. So there's a couple humdingers in there. Any questions about that? Because remember, I didn't make those times up. I didn't show you my hidden monitor where I have my super guru secrets. I didn't post Instagram videos showing a day in the life of a successful trader where I'm leaning against my Lamborghini in the garage that I rented from my neighbor for an hour. I told you that I believe markets are rigged and that time is the key. I gave you the times for the NASDAQ in the future. And then I gave you directions on how to trade those times, what stop to use, what target to use. And when we came back 2 days later, this is what happened. John says, how long of a moving average do you use? So as a general rule, 15 years ago, we started with a 120 period EMA. And one of the things I try to do in the webinars, John, is to consistently I try to use the same settings each week. So one of the things vendors will do is they'll change the settings and the parameters to make the program look great each week. I fell into that trap about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Every week, the guy would change the size of the range bar that his stop and reverse signal published. One week it was a 4 range, the next week it was a 6 range, one week it was a 12 range. And I said, hey, by any chance, you're not changing the size of the range bars to make it look great every day, right? Never heard from him again. So we started with a 120. Somebody, a friend of a guy who learned how to trade from his uncle, asked me to use it, and I like it. However, in my live rooms, when I'm teaching my class, I'll actually apply, and I'm a bigger fan of the 20 period. So I'll use a 20 period EMA now instead of a 120 in my personal stuff and when I train people. The 120 is a good general direction trend indication. Okay, we haven't changed any of the other settings of the signals, by the way, in 15 years. There's only one market that we've changed the settings on. Do you want to see it? Yeah, okay, cool. So before I show it to you, there's a phenomenon. Phenomenon. There's a phenomenon in timing where the polarity of the signals can change. And this is what I loosely sketched by hand when I figured it out. So John, imagine everything is going selling signal, buying signal, selling signal, buying signal, selling signal, buying signal. It oscillates. There's a moment in every market, and I've been really teaching this in my live classes each week. There's a moment where the cycle flips, and it usually happens just before a trend reversal. And what happens, John, is it goes selling signal, and then the very next signal that was supposed to be a buying signal is backwards and drops. And now we're on the orange wave. And then the next signal that was supposed to be a selling signal is a buying signal. And then the next signal that was supposed to be a buying signal is a selling signal. And there's a sequence of reverse polarity. Conceptually, does that make sense? There's the possibility that everything goes backwards. It's something that W.D. Gann wrestled with a long time ago. Well, the one chart that I referenced that does this is the E-mini S&P daily chart. And the settings on that chart are different. Instead of looking back 7 days and 14 days, this one has a different look back. I have trading days, 1, 2, 3, and the swing strength is 5. Okay, so you see my chart right here? What I've been showing people in the class is this. And we talked about it this morning. If you were there, you remembered what I said would happen today. John, look at what happens on the 25th. What happens on the 2nd? What happens on the 6th? What happens on the 15th? What happens on the 3rd? What happens on the 4th? What happened on the 12th? And what happened on the 13th? In my room today, and I have it recorded, I can show it to you for proof if you want it. I was telling everyone there that we were going to see the market start to rise until the 19th. But you'll notice that inside of this zone, all of the signals are backwards. Does that make sense? So that's the only other chart that I use a different setting for. But even there, I can see what's happening and navigate it. There's a thing with Delta that we actually see take place. If we go back to, do you know who Wells Wilder is with the Market Delta Society? Are you familiar with that? Yeah, so check this out. In the handout section of your go-to meeting, you should have a booklet that says Guide to the Histograms or a histogram guidebook. Let me know if you have that. I'll open it up on my side. So this is something we've been giving out for 8 years now. And so, John, one of the things we started to notice was that most of the signals did what was expected. So these are back in 2016. We've been at this for a while. But occasionally, you would come to a signal that went in the opposite direction. And I want to kind of direct your attention to this first one. We call it a pattern 5 because it's the first one that we found. And in essence, when you're following time cycles, there are patterns that appear. So one of the things we started to notice was that if you arrive at a buying signal time and that candle is higher than the prior swing high, right? We've eclipsed it. And either it, the candle to the left, or the candle to the right of it are brand new highs. Whichever one of those three in this cluster qualifies, we put a red arrow over it. Because when those happen, it usually does this and goes in the opposite direction. Okay, bear that in mind. Remember, this is in an 8-year-old book, and I'll show you the software automatically produces these patterns. Same thing happens with the selling signal. If you arrive at a selling signal at a brand new low, and either it, the candle to the left or the right, are new structural lows in relation to each other, then more often than not, it does this. Goes in the opposite direction. Okay, give me a Y or an N if you're tracking so far. It's a mirror image of the move, but mechanically, discretion free. Yeah, so now I want you to look at Wells Wilder because he's trying to delve into this time. This was a $25,000 book, if I remember right. Is that correct? Was it 15 or 25,000? Some of you bought it. And check this out. This is what you got. This is all you got. You got signals, and they're over here on the right-hand side for different markets. So you can see there's selling signals over here and there's buying signals over here. Now, John, check it out. What he would do is he would fudge it. He'd say, we were waiting for a buying signal on the 20th. And then when he saw the curve right here, after the fact, he would put that yellow, that blue circle there, and he would cheat. He'd say, well, it got here eventually. Now, go back to the book. And now look, where is the bar on the 20th? It's this bar right here. I can't draw really straight lines with a mouse, but I'm going to try. Can you see that? There's the prior swing high, and you see how the 20th is the higher high? If it was in our program, or if you knew about this in your book, the program would have drawn an arrow right here. Does that make sense? Does that track? Now, conversely, where he has a number 4, look where he drew his circle. He drew it earlier, after the fact. Now look where I'm going to draw the straight line. I know where it is. Right there. It's a new lower low. And so now that's where the green arrow would appear, and it starts to reverse and go up. The 6th is exactly where it's supposed to be. The 5 is exactly where it's supposed to be. The 23 is exactly where it's supposed to be. The 1 is exactly where it's supposed to be. But he didn't have the understanding or the mental fortitude or freedom to understand that these backward signals are a natural part of time cycles. And so now what we're able to do, can I minimize this chart now that you see the backward stuff? Here's an example of a pattern 5, right? There's the prior swing high. That candle is a brand new high, pattern 5. Okay, so let's go back to our signals. Look at CL. CL is a good candidate for this. And John, what I'll do is I'll deactivate this check mark where it says only show me the basic dots. And when I hit OK, watch what happens. You see all those numbers start to pop up? And now the computer is automatically looking for those circumstances, like right here at 12:48, there's a number 5. And right here at 10 o'clock, there's a number 5. So we can build that logic into the code. And now when we arrive at those moments intraday, again, great for pointing this out. We don't have to fudge it and draw circles in the wrong place later on. We have a means of interpreting it in real time and saying, oh, wow, we arrived at a new structural high at a buying pressure time. That's a pattern 5, and we're expecting it to go down. I don't usually show this to people in the webinar because it's a little weird. What do you mean? Some of the buy signals go down and some of the sell signals go up? Yeah. There's one more thing we can learn and add to it. It's not this flat, sugar-filled Pop-Tart indicator. Time affords us the ability to go as deep as we want or stay in the shallow. You can really kind of sink your mind into some of these ideas or just flip a switch and the signals automatically appear. So we can apply those indicators, those settings for the indicator in real time and get a sense for where those back and forth movements will be. Any questions about this as we kind of come around the horn? Because I want to show you a little bit more about an alternative tool that some of you can participate with because you don't necessarily have NinjaTrader or like NinjaTrader. We love it, but if you don't like it, there's an alternative tool for TradingView. This is in the cloud-based browser right here called Kronos. And Kronos is essentially doing the same thing. Here I have the E-mini S&P 5-minute chart, and it's drawing the dot at the same stop level, 1.5 ATR values away, and letting me know in advance when to expect the next buying and selling times. And so I can add different charts to the mix. I can look at different instruments. I can look at multi-chart view. I can look at Bitcoin and SPY and really move around and get a sense of when to expect those moves. And so in this case today, using TradingView for Kronos for TradingView, I would have been alerted to potential move up at 1150, a potential move up at 210, and then towards the end of the market here at 350. We can see in advance when those next times are coming. There's no histogram on the bottom. TradingView doesn't let us do that. It's a pretty restrictive platform, honestly, that doesn't give us a whole lot in the way of opportunities to mix things up and try different things. In fact, fun fact, TradingView only gives you a certain number of characters to write a custom indicator, and we have maxed out the number of characters you can use and programmed in as much as we can. Here's an example of that, for example, with Bitcoin on a 5-minute chart. And again, you can sort of see in real time where the signals are expected to come. The other thing that you can do here, and I just wanted to reflect that, you can also do this in the Warp program. If you want to see larger moves and fewer signals, simply come in here and change the amplitude. And so when you change the amplitude, John, we're asking the program now to go back and look for larger moves and larger swings instead of including smaller nooks and crannies inside of that. And so that can be something that's useful for some of you if you want to go back and do that as well. So Kronos gives us that ability. And now see when that finally updated, now you can see there are fewer times on Bitcoin and larger moves involved intraday. And so we can look at other things, for example, like the euro US dollar. And it takes a second for the data to be calculated because we're basically asking one of the servers at TradingView to do the heavy lifting for us. But once it's done and the work is included in that process, then it's pushed back over to our browser, as opposed to NinjaTrader, which sort of leverages your PC's CPU, multi-thread, of course. And in this instance here, you can see the euro US dollar in Kronos on TradingView now in comparison to the euro currency on, let's do a 5-minute chart just to sync it up. Okay. Two completely different platforms, same approach to the problem. Okay. Now that you know that this is possible, we have a problem. You've heard me say this before. You know what I'm about to say. If it's possible to know the times in the future, and about half of those times are on average the actual swing pivot high and low, why don't you want this? If we've stripped away every potential to manipulate you mentally, right? There's no way to have fudged this. The pixels were uploaded to the interweb 2 days ago, right? The trading system is the same verbiage, the same words that it's been forever, same 120, same 1.5 ATR, same signal with trend, et cetera, et cetera. You might not like me. You might not like my voice, my jokes, whatever it is about me you don't like. But in terms of the integrity of the approach and the belief that time is the most important factor, where were we able to massage you mentally? Where was the psychedelic trick? There was none. Nobody can do this. It's very hard. In fact, the Kronos program for TradingView, I thought it would be 6 weeks. It ended up being a year to program it and make the platform do it. Why wouldn't you want to know? What do you have to think about? What system do you have and what planet do you live on where not knowing the times is better? I get that all the time. Well, I got to see how this integrates with what I'm doing right now. What are you doing right now? Are you looking through Bernie Madoff's notebook? I don't get it. And constantly these objections come back. And what I've realized is some people don't want to be profitable. Some people like the adrenaline. Some people are embarrassed that they've bought all these other things that they know are garbage. And if they have to go back and ask their spouse or partner one more time, they're going to get laughed out of the house or trounced out of the house. Some people punish themselves in the market. It's a self-flagellation. Flagellation? They beat themselves up with losses. Somebody told them that was important to them in their lives. You're no good. You'll never amount to anything. And they manifest that in their trading. And if they actually knew the times, they couldn't do that anymore. And there's this really small group of people, tiny, infinitesimally small, that come to us and they're like, dude, I read your email. I've read every one of your reviews. I've looked at all of your YouTube videos. I've done all the due diligence, and I'm here. I wanted to see if it was real. I came across a forum the other day, and there's a review out there from, I don't know how many years ago, tradingschools.org, guy named Emmett Moore, who's literally been convicted for fraud. And he went to all of the vendors that he was going to review and ask them for money. There are people online, you can read their experiences. And he came to us and said, hey, blah, 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 blah. And I got a 1 star. A 1 star from a guy who was convicted by the SEC. That's the one official review that's out there. And so to get past all of those hurdles, we've done all of these things on these charts to make it absolutely transparent, where there's no way I could influence any of it. And there's a very small group of people here today who are saying, I'm here and I'm ready for it. If you want these programs, there's 2 paths forward. On our website, when you go to Trading Tools, if you want TachEon Warp, you're going to click on Learn More. And at the bottom of the page, you're going to see 2 options. Number 1, there's a lifetime license. Don't worry, there's a promo code for you. Yeah, Kronos is ours. Everything on the website is our tool, designed in-house, white glove, no, clean room, developed here. These are all our programs, our intellectual property. So if you click on that Buy Now button, it's going to take you to a page, and there's a place for a promo code. You're going to put the code W, lowercase, WARPOFF, Whiskey Alpha Radio, Papa Oscar Foxtrot, Foxtrot, Warp off, WARP. If we lived in the warp universe and someone cut you off in the street, you would yell, hey buddy, warp off. And when you hit apply, it's going to take $500 off of the price. Okay, that's our gift to you for coming to this webinar. Okay, you can check out, hit the checkout button. If you want to do PayPal and PayPal pay later and not pay anything for 6 months, you can go ahead and go down through there as well. Otherwise, hit checkout if you want to get involved with your PayPal stuff, then and only then go down into that area. If you choose the other option, the first option compared to the second, I have a live room, and that live room shows live markets every morning. I actually have calls and tell people I would like us to get in here, I would like us to get in there, and there are signals, and I show people, hey, I want to get in here and get in there, and we in the markets actually go through those signals together, and we look at the E-mini NASDAQ and the E-mini S&P, among others, and we find setups live in the market together where, let me show you one from earlier this week, where we're making those calls and looking for those kinds of entries. Let me see, where was the last one? There's a lot on here. Is this it? Yeah, there's one. There's a good example of it. So that's included here. We meet Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. The classes are recorded, and there's a booklet, a PDF that has all the setups that I teach, specific trading strategies that I've developed around these signals. Okay, so you can do that and also apply your promo code if you want. You want to learn a little bit about the software and sort of see how it's working on different markets here. You can get a good sense of that as well. The other program that's available now, and we're proud to offer it, it's a growing body of users, is Kronos for TradingView. And so we're trying to get the good word out, the gospel of time to everyone. And we've already built that promo code into here. It is normally $295 a month. We're going to get to a certain number of users and then bump it back up to $300, $295. But if you want to get involved now as an early adopter, We're trying to help get the word out. If you could please help us let other people know in the community groups and the forums and the discords that it's available. We're offering it for $195 a month right now. So $195, you can pretty much get in there and start using it and seeing these times for yourself. Remember, if you see a blue dot or a white dot on this chart, I didn't draw it. The program was warning us about a behavior pattern that was happening. So on the euro US dollar, we're in the trillions of dollars here, trillions of dollars of manipulation. And just one of those trades would have paid for the cost of the program. Okay, so you have Kronos available to you if you're in the TradingView school. You also have Warp available to you if you're in the NinjaTrader school. Either way, there's kind of no excuse left if you're looking at this. Don't be this guy. Don't be this guy. When you wake up tomorrow and you go to place a trade and it goes violently against you and your psychological triggers kick in, your fight or flight response is evoked, and you start moving your stop further and further away, I want you to remember that there was probably a time signal that you did the exact opposite at. I want you to remember when you lose, if you leave here today without the tool, that you lost because you chose to be ignorant and in the dark and not believe that these guys were doing what they get caught doing all the time. Fun fact, they removed the regulations that they put in place, a lot of them, after the financial recession in 2009. No regulation, no regulation. We're coming back into that season of all bets are off again. Nobody's watching the fox in the hen house. And so these kinds of plays, these moves, I believe are going to get more frequent, more violent, and the volatility is coming back like it did in 2008 and 2009. You could be sitting there and see a very low risk setup with structure supporting you, a trend line, volume, whatever you're watching, and know exactly how long to be in the move. I've got 35 minutes for this to work. Why would I get out in 3? That's the choice that's available to you. And our customers basically do that. We wait for Goldman to race, and then we pull up behind them and let them suck up our car in their draft. We move where they move, when they move, right? I'm not going to put my rowboat right in front of this aircraft carrier. Don't do that. Cut it out. You had a choice. You were warned. I love this slide. I didn't use this PowerPoint in a while. There's a golden rule. If we can track when they trade, if we can pull that data to the surface, if we can alert people ahead of time and give them the tools to see what was hidden in the dark, I will have lived a good life. I will have felt good about what we've done here, and I do. I feel great about it. Any questions about this as we come around the horn? Yeah, once you download, once your transaction goes through, the software is provided to you, the installer, the installation instructions, you get access to a video training library, installation videos. You'll get access to our Skype group where we have hundreds of users that are using the program every day, communicating and sharing and teaching each other. You'll have access to our pro staff, people here that are helping other people, traders who are using this for stocks and options and futures. It's a great community to be a part of. So there's a lot more besides the purchase. Lifetime license, lifetime updates, 2 computers to work with. Put it on your desktop and your laptop, take it with you. Trade long-term swing positions on the daily and weekly charts, and then come in and scalp on the intraday charts while your big investments like your Bitcoin purchases are moving up and down. Hey Jill, when you purchase the live room, you're going to get sent a username and password, and in the upper right corner is going to be a place for you to log in, and that'll take you to the Customer Resource Center. Yep, and then At the end of the week, Rachel posts the archived videos too. So everything you've purchased, there'll be download links if the software is updated for you to change to a new version. Those kinds of things. The customer videos are there. The resources are all in that section. We've done a pretty good job refreshing that too. We're doing a lot here to make sure that. Also, we've got some pretty good resources on our website. I would encourage you to get in, check out our blogs, as well as our social media channels. There's links on every pages to that. Be involved. Go to our YouTube channel, for example, Back to the Future Trading, and we publish our videos every week. This webinar will be uploaded, and then we also have helpful pieces of advice and little things that might be of use to you and your day-to-day use of the software too. So that can be found on our Instagram channel at Back to the Future Trading, Facebook, as well as TikTok when it comes back, and YouTube too. So go ahead and don't forget to like and subscribe to those as well. All right, listen to me. I'm tired. It's freezing cold outside. It's soaking wet. North Carolina, spring comes violently every year, and I hate it. I understand why everyone moves to Florida now. I used to make fun of you. I get it now. So let's wrap this up. I am for you. I am real about this. I haven't lied about anything. I've been at this for over 16 years now. Thousands of customers have come through these doors. If it was any different than this, I'd tell you, this is the single blade of grass that we've focused on here for 15 years. This is all we study. This is all we've looked at. And I'm convinced that for most of you watching this, this is going to be the thing that turns the tide. Not because I want it or I have some Pollyannic vision of it, because I've just seen what other people have done. When they sat on this webinar, they put in their information, the transaction went through, and then everything changes. Everything changed for them right after that. Go back and read the reviews on Trustpilot. Go back and look at the signals that we published. Review the video that you saw here today and see, where did the tiger go? He was in the box. I went abracadabra and the tiger disappeared. There's no holes in the floor. There's no screen behind me. There's no mirrors. There's no strings. There's no ropes. Today we saw the tiger disappear. It was real. It's not magic. It's just math. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine upon your faces. May the valleys rise up to meet you and the mountains lay low before you as you go on your journey. I wish you peace and prosperity and health and fellowship and all the things you wish and want for yourself. You learned something today, and I'm proud of you for that. There are a lot of people today who don't want to learn anything, and that's okay. But you learned something. Your brain's a little bigger than it was before you got here, and I'm proud of you for that. Keep going, keep pushing. I'm an ally. I'm on your side. Everyone here wants you to succeed and believes and knows that you can do it. And so continue to press forward and press on. Thanks again. We'll see you all on the other side of the weekend break. Congratulations to those of you that are moving forward with us today. I'm extremely encouraged. My phone number and email address are all over the website. If you have any questions, please reach out and contact me. You're also going to hear from members of our pro staff via email and phone number. Please give them a shot to tell you what they can do for you to help you on board. Otherwise, God bless. Go in peace. Make the world a brighter space. Tell a joke. Tell someone their hair looks great. Tell them you think they lost a little bit of weight. Give your wife the good piece of chicken when you bring that KFC bucket home. We could all use some kindness on the planet right now. And I join you in that endeavor. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.